Now when you're choosing your seeds, there are a few things that are worth knowing. I am going to be planting my tomatoes, which I have quite a small selection of this year, because I've decided just to focus on the ones that grow well. I've got a couple of sweet potatoes or kumara that I want to put in some dirt ready to grow some slips. I've got some determinate Roma tomatoes, which are from seeds that I saved from last year. I've got a couple of old chilies that honestly I don't expect either of them to grow, but I'm going to try it anyway. I've got some California wonder and some mulatto. I've got two different types of jalapeno, which I'm going to try. Last year I grew some ricotta chilies. Apparently they're meant to be able to be like a perennial even in temperate zones. So I'm going to try some of those because I didn't get any fruit off the ones I did last year. Artisan Blush were like my straight up favourite tomato ever. They've got a delicious flavour. They were super prolific. They're kind of like a large cherry tomato. They're kind of a big oblongy, well not oblong, oval shaped plant. They're sort of yellow and red blush together. They're really lovely. Some cherry tomatoes. This one's just one called Sweet Bite. I know that it is a hybrid, but they're really prolific and we like them. And the other thing I'm going to give another go to is a subarctic plenty. I think I shortchanged them last year and expected too much of them, so I am going to give those another try. There's three sorts that you'll probably come across. There's heirloom, also known as heritage varieties, and they tend to be the more interesting, brightly coloured. There's a huge range of them, and they're ones that have been around for a really long time, and they've been passed down from family to family, and they are like a stable cross. So if you keep the seeds from them, you're going to get the same as the parent plant. That's called true to type. There's another true to type option, which are open pollinated, and these have not been around quite so long, but they have been around long enough that if you keep the seeds, they will be true to type, but they're just not old enough yet to be considered a heritage or heirloom variety. And the third type is what we know as F1 or hybrids, and these are ones where the two parent plants are actually quite specifically grown, usually from clones, and then they are crossed, and that seed is the first cross and it is known as the hybrid. And so those will not grow true to type if you save the seeds from the plant that you've grown. However, a lot of hybrid plants are really robust. You get a lot of harvest from them, and they're usually quite disease resistant as well. So there are merits to either option, and a lot of backyard growers will grow predominantly hybrid plants, but will often keep a few open pollinated plants on the side as well to be able to save their own seed, just in case for whatever reason they can't get hold of the seed they usually like to grow. So if you've decided that you would like to grow your plants from seed yourself, there are a few things you're going to need. You're going to need something to grow them in. Now that can be an ice cream container like this one. You can reuse 6 cell or 8 cell or 4 cell, whatever you can get hold of, seed trays, and we do reuse a lot of these. We usually get them for free either on like local Facebook groups or even just through friends and family. They're not recyclable, so one of the best things you can do with them is actually to reuse them. And usually people are quite willing to just give them away. Alternatively, you could fork out and buy some seed trays a bit more like these. They come in a huge range of sizes and volume, and honestly, if you're a first time seed grower, I wouldn't bother. These ones, I'll turn you around so you can have a look. These ones here actually have a whole nother tray underneath them that fit perfectly so that I can bottom water my tomatoes rather than pouring them in through the top. Sorry, I thought my seed had gone, but it was still there. because tomato seeds are so tiny that if you're raining a lot of water down through the top, you do risk them running all the way down into the dirt and not being able to grow them. They just won't germinate if they're buried too deep. So you're going to need something to grow them in, some potting mix or some seed raising mix. If you're new to this whole gig, I would recommend you get yourself some seed raising mix. It's basically a finely sieved potting mix that also has some grits in it to help retain the moisture, but also to help it drain. And it does tend to be a little better decomposted than this stuff. There are bits of actual wood still in here, which I'm not particularly impressed about. In theory, potting mix should not have... Can we zoom in there? Potting mix should not have raw pieces of actual wood in it. It should be fairly well decomposed. So before you put your seeds in, make sure your potting mix is nice and damp. If you're new to gardening and you're not sure what you are doing and you don't know what to plant or when, I have put together a massive book just for you. It's 260 odd pages of what you need to be planting, when you need to be planting it, how to get a garden started. I'll put those links in the description below for you. Now to fill up seed trays, you want a nice moist mixture. And then you want to fill the seed trays enough that they're near the top, and then sort of tamp them down firmly to get rid of any air pockets. And then you just place 1 to 2 seeds in each of the little holes. Now you, my friend, Chloe's got herself some down there that she's done. We've just used, these are just aluminium or aluminum, however you want to say them, barbecue trays with some of the 6-cell seed trays in there. Now there is a general rule for planting seeds. Usually you want to sow them 1 to 2 times as deep as the seed is wide. So that, except for the tiniest of tiny seeds, which you just sprinkle over the top. So some, specifically herbs, some of their seeds are so tiny that you just sprinkle them over the surface and they'll just naturally sort of roll their way down into the cracks and they don't need covered up. But if you're doing most other vegetable plants, you want them to be 1 to 2 times as deep. So what I do for these little seeds like tomatoes and brassicas, like your cauliflower and broccoli and those sorts of things, I usually just sprinkle them on top, and then once they're all sitting on top, I go through with just a fine dusting of a little bit more potting mix. Yeah. And that is just to help keep the top layer damp. It helps keep the sun off the seeds while they germinate. If you're looking at growing some of the bigger seeds like beans, peas, not broccoli, what's the other thing? Zucchini, pumpkin, cucumbers, any of those sort of squash related things that have the bigger seeds, it's a really good idea to soak those for between 2 and 24 hours before you sow them, and that will just give the seed a better start. It will swell it up and it will germinate much faster if you do that. Chloe, can I have the pen please? Now one thing I must say, if you're using a big tray like this, try and keep the tray full of the same sort of plant, because they all need specific requirements. So I wouldn't, these are all going to be tomatoes basically is what I'm saying. I'm not going to put lettuce or like brassicas or anything in here. They're all going to be the same type of plant, and that way I know that they all need the same sort of heat and they all need the same sort of moisture. And these are some seeds that I saved myself from our Roma tomato from this year. So the upside to saving your own seed that you've grown in your own garden, if you save them from your best plants, eventually you're going to end up with plants that are really well suited to your environment and the way that you raise your seeds. which is actually how most heirloom varieties pretty much come about, is that somebody has let something crossbreed or they've inadvertently discovered it. I don't know if I put them in there or not. And they have just grown the exact same variety for quite some time amongst their family, because it becomes a family favourite, and then eventually that particular plant becomes popular in a community, and that is usually how the well-known heirloom varieties actually get to stick around. I belong to a few local seed saving groups, and the aim of those is to try and preserve plants that do really well in our local environment and seeds that do particularly well down here, despite it being a little colder than a lot of the rest of the country. So the peas, the carrots, what else? There's quite a few things that I grow that are local varieties. Chloe has just reminded me of a really good point. Sorry, I'm trying to make the camera focus. When you are getting seeds out of your seed packet, tip them onto your hand rather than sticking a wet damp finger into the seed packet. We want to keep the seed packet nice and clean and dry to optimize how long those seeds are going to last for. So once you've got your seeds all planted, now the trick is to keep them warm. Different seeds have different requirements. Check on the back of your packet if it is one that needs a particular temperature. Usually they just need to be above freezing, and the warmer they are, the faster they'll grow up to a certain point. Most plants over about between 30 and 35 degrees Celsius will stop growing, so you don't want them to be quite that warm. But generally speaking, keep them sunny, keep them warm, and keep them watered, and you will have seedlings in no time. It's always a really great idea to grow a lot more seed than what you expect you need of plants too, because between plants not germinating, maybe some dud seeds, I think these ones are a little bit old. All the ones I grew from this last year just didn't grow. And it's always nice if you've got spares to either tuck them in the side of your garden so you've got bare plants, or to give them away to friends and family that might need them. A seed costs so little, and if you're sowing some, you may as well sow a whole bunch, right? If you know anybody else that would like to get started growing their own food, I'd love it if you would share this information with them, and I will see you in the next one.